Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Gao, and here's what happened this week. A huge cleanup operation is underway in Taiwan after Typhoon Krathon downed trees and triggered flooding in the south of the country. Krathon slammed into the port city of Kaohsiung on Thursday morning, its record-breaking winds leaving a trail of destruction. John Van Trieste reports.
Typhoon Krathon's collision with Taiwan may be over, but the storm hasn't gone quietly. In Kaohsiung, where the eye wall slammed into the coast, debris flew, while high winds trashed this shopping center. Local people had prepared for the worst, but they were still frightened by how fierce the storm ended up being.
台风登陆开始啊，那个风就很强，大概10级、13级的感觉，那个整个我们的铁门啊，楼上那个水塔那边的铁门都整个都轰隆轰隆都很大声，都蛮可怕的。
The port area at the center of this southern city saw damage too, with toppled shipping containers, fallen scaffolding, and fishing boats cast adrift.
我们有派港勤拖船在渔港的堤口那边关注那个船的情况，因为不要让它再往航道这边飘了。因为原则上那个船还是会协助拖回到前镇渔港里面的。
And the chaos wasn't confined to the areas directly hit in the southwest. The storm's rains wrapped all the way around to the opposite side of the island, causing knee-deep floodwaters in northeastern towns like Luodong. The floodwaters have receded, but waterlogged interiors and debris-filled streets remain, leaving a long period of cleanup ahead. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Now, the storm forced 2 days of closures around the country. John is back looking at what that meant for business owners.
It's been a painful 2 days for business owners like Wang Baochuang. Though he's managed to keep his claw machine arcade open, there's no one playing for the prizes inside. It's just drizzling right now, but Wang knows that even typhoons that might not seem too bad can turn very bad very quickly. A 1977 typhoon wrecked this city, killing 37. And even the last typhoon to pass by in July hit hard.
要维修，像上次稍微风雨那么大，这一台就是坏掉了，被那个雨渗透进去，那个电池板就会潮湿，潮湿就是坏掉。我们这一次，上次有那种状况发生，所以这一次我们就要提早把它准备好。
Dance studio owner Nana Lee and her kids are the only people out and about in this neighborhood. She too faces losses from the lack of business and the added stress of keeping the children entertained. But again, people in this city know not to underestimate how quickly a typhoon can turn.
台风假，然后小朋友还蛮喜欢玩雨水的，对，就让他们清静一下也没关系。
现在风雨状况怎么样？
还好。
会担心之后会变大？
可能晚一点会变大。对，照上一次的案例来说的话，应该是。
Autumn typhoons are just a part of life in this part of the world. Business owners like these know to expect them, and this typhoon season, at least, has been relatively quiet. As they know from destructive storms in the past, things could certainly be much worse. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
That decision to call a typhoon day or not can prove to be politically controversial. To learn more about the politics of typhoon days, our reporter Chris Gorin spoke with Taipei-based lawyer Michael Fahey.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a typhoon day in Taiwan?
Well, for government workers, a typhoon day is a mandatory day off. But for employees in the private sector, it's a safety precaution for employers. Whether or not to have a typhoon day is decided by the individual mayor or county commissioner in the particular jurisdiction. I think there's a big misunderstanding among many people in Taiwan that typhoon days are a legal holiday. I would just emphasize they're not. And your employer can call you in, and you may not get paid overtime for that. So there are a lot of very unhappy TSMC employees because apparently they're all working on this typhoon day just like they've worked on every other typhoon day for the last 30 years. But it is something that does affect relations between employers and employees because it goes against what today's employees expect.
So are there any constituencies or groups that are opposed to taking Typhoon days?
Absolutely. Employers, small business owners will be unhappy about Typhoon days getting called. There are all kinds of wild estimates about how much a Typhoon day might cost an employer. Some people are saying up to $1 billion a day. There are other people saying that a factory with 1,000 workers might pay $3 to $5 million in overtime on a Typhoon day. So they're not going to be happy about that. And then small business owners have rent to pay, so they're not going to be happy about Typhoon days.
So then the decision on whether or not to have a Typhoon day can actually be controversial?
Absolutely. There's probably 3 different ways that they can be politically controversial. The first way is that employees today really look forward to these Typhoon days. And if your city doesn't get a typhoon holiday, but the neighboring or the next one over county or city does, there's going to be a lot of disappointed voters out there. And then there's more direct issues. Here in Taipei, a lot of people don't have street parking or a parking lot to use, so they park out on these extensive parking lots past the flood walls near the rivers. Taipei City closed the gates to the parking lots earlier than New Taipei City did. And right now the Geelong River is pretty high, so there's a lot of car owners with cars out there that they can't retrieve who are upset. And if their cars get flooded, they're going to be unhappy voters. And finally, there's another way that it can become politically controversial. It has happened in the past that the mayor of a city has called the typhoon holiday on the morning of the day, so they delayed and didn't do it at 8 o'clock at night like it's normally done. And that totally disrupts people's child care and work arrangements and that sort of thing.
That was Taipei-based lawyer Michael Fahey. Now, former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je has said no to a 5th round of questioning over alleged corruption. As John Van Trieste reports, this will not be the end of a scandal that's shaking up national politics.
Former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je's lawyer remains tight-lipped at the prosecutor's office. His client has been in custody for weeks amid allegations of corruption. Prosecutors think developers of a shopping mall in Taipei bribed officials to expand its floor space when Ko was mayor. But how much Ko knew of the deal isn't clear. Their findings will have a national impact, as Ko is the head of one of Taiwan's big 3 political parties. Ko's supporters say 4 rounds of questioning have left him worn out. He's refused a 5th round that was supposed to happen on Tuesday. Due to health concerns, prosecutors aren't forcing the issue.
有没有可能北检一直不断的在重复问类似的问题，或者是不断在问一些兜来兜去，今天跟你扯北市科，明天跟你扯金华城，一直不断去解释这些问题，你会觉得心理上面的那个压力当然会很大。
As police hold other suspects in the case, a government working group is taking its own look at the scandal.
我们也会重新再把这一个相关的调查报告送交监察院去调查，或者是弹劾决策首长的行政责任。
Ko's silence won't stop prosecutors from digging. His fall could leave his Taiwan People's Party badly shaken and perhaps even upset the political balance of power, meaning this is just an intermission in a scandal that will continue to be in the national spotlight. Ryan Wu, Hank Xu, and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has responded to China's comments at the United Nations General Assembly that a UN resolution from decades ago gives Beijing the right to represent Taiwan in the global body.
这一决议彻底解决了包括台湾在内全中国在联合国的代表权问题，明确不存在2个中国，不存在一中一台。
联大第2758号决议的内容既未提到台湾，也没有确认台湾是中华人民共和国的一部分，更未授权中华人民共和国在联合国代表台湾。外交部要求中国停止误导国际视听。
UN Resolution 2758 was passed unanimously by the General Assembly in 1971. It switched representation for China's seat at the organization from the Republic of China, that's Taiwan's official name, to the People's Republic of China. Beijing has used this resolution in recent years to justify blocking Taiwan at UN bodies, such as the World Health Organization and in international sport competitions, where Taiwan is usually required to participate under the name Chinese Taipei. Now, for more on China's use of UN Resolution 2758 to prevent Taiwan's participation in the organization, our reporter Chris Gorin spoke with Professor Ian Chung of the National University of Singapore.
Has China always emphasized UN Resolution 2758 to justify its Taiwan claims, or has this ramped up over time?
So the use of UN Resolution 2758 to lay claim to Taiwan is a relatively new development. So previously, the PRC had just laid claim to Taiwan based on history and so on and so forth. There was some reluctance to use it in previous periods because the resolution itself has no language referring to Taiwan. It is only about the representation of the China seat at the United Nations. So the PRC, I think, is trying to create some sort of legal basis for its claim within international law, within the body of international law. But it could open the door for lots of other reinterpretations of lots of other things by other actors. That could create a lot more messiness that I'm not sure Beijing has fully anticipated.
Has China's interpretation of the resolution been persuasive to other countries in the world?
So states that pay attention to the issue, they do, and they're saying that this is a distortion of what is actually in the text. Now, states that don't pay attention to cross-strait issues, and there are many of them, that would be most states in the world, I don't think they've really said stuff either way. There have been some legislatures, like the one in the Netherlands and Australia, have been pushing back through their own resolutions. And the US, I think in Congress, there is some move in that direction.
What about in Taiwan's domestic politics? How do the different political parties view this issue?
So within the context of Taiwan, the Democratic Progressive Party has been calling for a resolution that basically rejects the PRC claim. The KMT has been emphasizing that they would only go along with something like that if the resolution includes language about readmitting the Republic of China into the United Nations. The ROC is Taiwan's official country name. I guess this part of the debate within Taiwan is, how and what to enter the United Nations as, whether it's Taiwan, Republic of China, parenthesis Taiwan.
Is this purely a cross-strait issue, or do you see something more going on here?
I mean, the back and forth is, on the one hand, a cross-strait issue, but it does, I think, also highlight Beijing's effort to reinterpret a whole bunch of other international agreements. This includes UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, where it rejected the arbitral tribunal that was convened under Annex 7, and then also the Sino-British Joint Declaration on Hong Kong. So the issue for the PRC is if they create a track record of reinterpreting texts outside of their original meaning, that could create larger commitment problems for them when they make a promise. Others would be more likely to second guess or to wonder whether Beijing will keep to whatever they've said.
That was Professor Ian Chung from the National University of Singapore. Protesters marched in London over the weekend to support Taiwan's inclusion in the UN. The demonstration drew attention from passersby and included participants from the Hong Kong, Uyghur, Tibetan, and Chinese communities. Now, they also protested China's interpretation of UN Resolution 2758, which led to Taiwan's 1971 expulsion from the global body.
中国共产党恶意曲解2758号释字，联合国的2758号释字，然后长期压迫台湾在国际上的地位。然后我们需要号召台湾人站出来，然后让英国国会也重视这个议题。
That protest came on the closing days of the UN General Assembly in New York. And thank you all for watching Here's What Happened. Before we go, we've got more images of Typhoon Krathon as it hit the country. I'm Eric Gao. Take care of yourselves.